Today, let's make sausage biscuits and gravy. Welcome back to the show, everybody. So today, sausage biscuits and gravy. So last month, I asked a question to our supporting members community about what food around the holidays was their favorite as a child. So this happens to be one of my favorite meals as a child, especially around the colder months. So we're gonna jump right in. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're going to saute our mushrooms. So this is 8 ounces of just regular button mushrooms that I've diced really finely. And then I've got 3 cloves of garlic minced. So as you notice, I didn't put any oil in my pan because mushrooms happen to be full of water. And as they cook, they release that water and then it absorbs back into them while they're cooking. So we're really just sweating these mushrooms out to get rid of that liquid. So I'm just gonna dry cook them here. And if they start to stick a little bit, you can always use, I have just a little bit of vegetable broth here, just to deglaze that pan. And about halfway through, you're gonna add your garlic. So this takes maybe about 5 minutes. So we're gonna wait till that's cooked and then I'll show you the rest of the ingredients. Okay, so our mushrooms and garlic are done. So that's the first thing that's going into your food processor. Make sure you get all that out of there. And our oven is already preheated to 400 degrees, and I have a cookie sheet lined with a piece of parchment paper so we can make our patties and put it onto that. Okay, so next I've got a half a cup of soaked sunflower seeds. I just soaked them for about a half an hour. So that's going in there. It's a nice, good, healthy fat. Half a cup of rolled oats. And then this is a cup and a half of cooked lentils. So I started out with half a cup of lentils, 1.5 cups of water, and just cooked them until they're done. And it makes 1.5 cups of lentils. 1/4 cup of flax meal, or ground flax. I have a half teaspoon of sage, a half teaspoon of rosemary, half teaspoon of thyme, a half teaspoon of crushed red pepper flakes, 2 teaspoons of smoked paprika, 1.5 teaspoons of crushed fennel seeds. You really need to crush your fennel seeds so you don't get a huge bite of fennel in one of your sausages. About 3/4 of a teaspoon of cracked pepper and a tablespoon of tamari. Okay, and yes, that's a lot of spices, but sausages really have a lot of spice in them. Okay, and then we're just gonna pulse it until it really starts to stick together. Okay, that looks like it's about enough. If you can see, I like to keep it a little bit grainy still so that it has some texture to it. If you mix it too much, it's more like pate, and it doesn't make that nice of sausages. You really kind of need a little bit of that texture to stay there. Okay, so now all that's left is to make our patties. And that, you just do it with your hands. And it all depends on how big you want your sausages to be, but a sausage patty is, you know, kind of like a hamburger, but it's about half the size of a hamburger. So about like that. And you just put them on your parchment. So I'm gonna finish pattying these out and then we'll get them into the oven. And they're going into the oven for 15 minutes on one side, then we'll flip them and they'll go back in for another 10 minutes. There's no denying the plant-based diet is a nutrient powerhouse, but did you know there are a handful of hard-to-get nutrients even well-crafted diets are often lacking?
The latest research suggests that complementing your diet with a few specific vitamins, minerals, and omega-3s will help boost your energy and keep you thriving for the long term. That's why my daily health routine includes Complement Essential. Complement Essential contains the 8 critical nutrients lacking from most plant-based diets in dosages optimized specifically for us. Plus, Complement is completely transparent about ingredient sourcing and third-party testing, publishing the results directly on their website. As a special discount for our viewers, just use code PLANTBASEDEASY at checkout to save 15% off of your order. Beans are an essential part of a whole food plant-based diet and should feature prominently in our daily menu. We love finding new and convenient ways to get our servings in. Wellbean is a tasty and wholesome way to get half a serving of beans in every bar. Wellbean bars are vegan and gluten-free with no preservatives and no added salt, sugar, or oil. Each bar is made only from an assortment of beans, fruits, nuts, and seeds. As a special deal for our viewers, follow the link in the description and use the code PLANTBASEDEASY at checkout to save $5 off a variety pack because life is better with beans.
Okay, so now onto the biscuits. So these are whole wheat biscuits. So it's not gluten-free, but if you are gluten-free, you can use oat flour. That also works. So this is 2 cups of whole wheat flour, 2 teaspoons of baking powder, and a half teaspoon of baking soda. I'm just going to whisk that together. Okay, that's pretty good. Now we're going to mix up our wet ingredients. So typically biscuits are made with flour and butter and cream and all these dairy products. So this is going to take the place of that. I've got 1 cup of water and 2/3 of a cup of cashews. And if you don't have cashews, you can also use almonds. They work great. Now we just need to blend this until there aren't any more cashew chunks. So try to get it as finely blended as you can. Okay, there we go. All right, so then you need to get yourself a cookie sheet with a piece of parchment paper on it, or a piece of Silpat. That works good too. All right, so all of this is going in. We're going to stir it up. And it's a very wet type of mixture here. It's not quite like a typical biscuit, not as dry, because we're not using the butter. It's going to be very, very sticky. So we're not going to roll them out. We're just going to do sort of like drop biscuits, because this will just completely stick to your counter and everything you're trying to cut those biscuits out with. And a little tip on mixing the biscuits too, you don't want to over mix because they'll get kind of hard and chewy. So you just mix it just until the flour is incorporated. So I'm mixing pretty carefully here. All right, that is good enough. And then I use a little bit smaller spoon to portion out my biscuits. Okay, just gonna stick them on there, and then I just kind of shape them a little bit with my hands, just to get them a little bit flatter. You don't want to get them too tall because they're gonna raise a little bit on their own. Okay. And my oven is still on 400 degrees from the sausages being in there. So we're gonna put the biscuits in and they're gonna bake for 10 minutes. So once I get these all spread out on my baking sheet, we're gonna stick them in the oven.
While we're waiting for that, I'd like to share some background on our show. The Whole Food Plant-Based Cooking Show is crowd-funded, which means these free weekly recipe videos, along with our entire catalog of free printable recipes on our website, plantbasedcookingshow.com, and our Plant-Based Cooking Made Easy cookbook series, are all made possible in part by the generous patronage of our supporting membership community. Our supporting members gain access to great member perks like our monthly product giveaways, ebooks, and in-depth courses, including our 28 Days Plant-Based Made Easy course, where we offer a step-by-step guide to making the switch to a fully plant-based diet. So if you love our recipes, I invite you to join us on our mission to make plant-based cooking easy, and follow the link in the description to become a supporting member today. Okay, let's get back to the show.
All right, now on to that gravy. All right, so typically the gravy would have chunks of sausage in it, which we will be using one of the sausages to crumble in there. But if you use too much of it, as it's cooking, it just starts to dissolve. So what we're gonna do instead is more mushrooms. So this is another 8 ounces of mushrooms, completely optional. If you don't want to do that, that's okay. It's still good without the mushrooms, but I think it just adds a little bit more texture that you know, like there's little sausage chunks in there. So we're just going to do like we did before. They're diced really fine. We're just going to cook them until all of that moisture is wicked out and the pieces get really nice and dry. So that's going to take, like it was before, about 5 minutes. All right, our mushrooms are ready. So now we get to add our other ingredients. So I have a tablespoon of tamari for saltiness, half a teaspoon of smoked paprika, 1 teaspoon of cracked pepper, because I like my sausage gravy to be very peppery, but that's completely up to you. You could use a half teaspoon, will do fine too. And a half teaspoon of crushed red pepper flakes, and that'll give it a little bit of that spiciness. But that said, again, you don't have to use that if you don't like spicy sausage gravy. And then I have a 1.5 cups of unsweetened soy milk, but you can use whatever plant milk you like or whatever you have on hand. I would just stress that it's unsweetened because you don't want a sweet sausage gravy. All right, so we're just gonna let that cook for a bit. Just cook for a couple minutes, and then we're gonna sprinkle a little bit of some of the flour that we used. And I just have some King Arthur. That's the flour that I used on the biscuits, because it's a whole grain or a whole wheat flour. All right. So the flour is gonna help it thicken. You can use it just like this. You'd probably have to use a little bit more soy milk because it's gonna cook down if you wanna just use that to thicken, but it takes a little while. But just a little bit of flour helps it along. And that's how you would typically make it. Okay, like that. And we're just gonna wait till that thickens up. And then once it's the thickness that you prefer, you're gonna take one of your sausages here. That's one of the finished ones. And you're just gonna crumble it up into the sauce. But that's really just before you serve it, because they do start to dissolve in the sauce. So I'm just gonna wait until that thickens, and then I'm gonna get a plate and a fork, and I'll meet you at the table for a taste. All right, guys, my favorite part, the tasting, but if you wanna come in and take a closer look so you can see what it looks like finished, come on in. So this is enough for 2 people. But of course, you're gonna have extra biscuits and extra sausages. So they store perfectly in the refrigerator in an airtight container. The sausages you can freeze. So I love biscuits and gravy mainly because after you finish your biscuits and gravy, you get to have a biscuit with jam. That's my favorite. So I'm gonna dig in here. I like to crumble my biscuit up a little bit on the plate. And then I do the same with my sausage. Just crumble it up a little bit. See how firm they are? That is just wonderful. Love it. And then I just pour the gravy right on top. This smells magical. All right, here we go. Get a little biscuit, get a little sausage, get some more of the gravy. Oops, don't fall off there. This is the absolute perfect comfort food. Oh my gosh, I love, love, love this. That gravy's got a nice bite to it with those crushed red pepper flakes. So many flavors going on. You are gonna love it. So let me know what you think. and come on back next week for another great recipe.